Okay, and we are back covering the JOLT conference live here in Nashville, Tennessee. This is the start of the day, and starting off with a bang, really. Larry Sprung, very well known on all the socials and all the conference circuits. You just got off the main stage, and I'm really pleased you're spending some time with us.
Yeah, pleasure to be here, Chuck, and do this in person for a change.
Without question. Larry and I have done this a few times via remote feed, I guess you would say, Zoom, AKA. And I should also mention that Larry is the founder and wealth advisor at Mitlin Financial, and author and social media phenom, all the above.
If you say so, yes.
I do say so.
I gladly accept those titles. Thank you.
All right, so we talk a lot about why people want to go RIA, and I think your story is a really good one for that. So you've done an amazing job. Maybe do a Superman thing, right? What did you do today that brought you joy?
Yes.
Trademark, R meaning real deal trademark.
We did, yeah. We have a couple of patents.
Patents?
Well, trademarks.
Trademarks. Oh, okay.
I
was like, holy
yeah,
smoke.
we have a couple of trademarks, a couple pending right now. We're trademarking our IP for business purposes. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's a brilliant one, right? And you've really taken that catchphrase, which I love because it makes a lot of sense and it's positive. There's so many people, even in our industry, that focus on the negative, and I love that you're focusing on the positive. And you've leveraged it into phenomenal success. I mean, everyone knows who you are, and I think that, the catchphrase has done that.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Here's my question for you. You're an RIA, obviously. Could you have done this at a wirehouse?
The answer to that is absolutely no. There's no way. I was with a wirehouse early on in my career, and then I was also with an independent broker-dealer. And it really wasn't until I, dropped my 7 and my FINRA licenses that really things eased up quite a bit in terms of what I was able to do and what I was capable of doing. And in full disclosure, we're a firm that's under the Carson Group, so we're under their corporate RIA. And there are definitely differences because they have advisors there that are under their corporate RIA that are hybrid, duly registered, and they have.
You've chosen not to do that.
I've chosen not to do that. We are RIA only.
Yep.
For these very reasons that we're talking about, and I can share with you anecdotally that those folks that are duly registered under Carson have a much different experience than we do when it comes to doing some of these marketing things that we're talking about.
Right, and you see that at the IBDs as well. Right?
100%.
So, I came out of the IBD channel, Raymond James, and I love them. They're still one of our custodians. We custody at Schwab as well. And what I like to say about the IBD folks is you are absolutely 100% independent right up until you want to do something they don't want you to do. And then you're not so much.
In certain instances, I would say this, right? They will say that they will allow you to do certain things that you're talking about, and then you go and submit that to compliance, and you'll be waiting weeks, if not months, if not years, to actually hear back, get comments, and actually do it. And at that point, it's probably no longer relevant. Where we have something new and exciting, we put it together, we submit it to compliance, and usually within 48 hours, we're getting a response that either this needs to be changed or amended, or we're good to go.
That's right. And I think that's a really good point. So for me, in a former life, I used to be one of the 12 money pros at the New York Daily News. Like good old-fashioned print stuff, but it was great. But the problem I had was they would inevitably call me at 3:50, needing something for the close, and I'd be like, I'll be back to you in a week or so. And they're like, that's not going to work. So what I really like is that you're not at a small RIA, right? Carson is not.
No, we serve over 50,000 families
Right.
and 40 some odd $billion in client family assets.
But even with that scale, they're still able to respond more quickly than the hybrid side.
Very nimble. I mean, we don't see any challenges with getting things done and getting things through compliance. And, listen, I know that old saying, the compliance is the business prevention department, and that's certainly true at certain institutions and some of those larger broker-dealers. It's definitely, a reality. But, you have to build a relationship with those compliance folks so they have an understanding of what you're doing, what you're about, and what you're trying to accomplish. And, it's got to be a partnership. And, everything we do is not necessarily 1,000% compliant going in. When I wrote my book, for example, we submitted the whole book, and I think there were 3 edits that came back.
That's
and
amazing.
It came back within a week. So, as long as it's reasonable and expected, and I think those edits actually made our book better, not worse. So, it's got to be a partnership, I think.
Absolutely. And again, I think it's worth re-emphasizing the fact that it's not so much the broker-dealers are trying to give you a hard time. FINRA compliance is very different than SEC compliance, right? And I have nothing but great things to say about my former IBD, Raymond James. But they are subject to keeping it compliant from a FINRA perspective, which is much more rigid than SEC, which is not to say the SEC is the Wild West, but I feel it's more reasonable in that you're already a fiduciary. So there's a different sort of standard as opposed to FINRA, which tends to be more rules-based, which tends to be more clunky to get through. Is that fair?
Yeah, I agree. I think that the SEC is more entrepreneurial and they understand that entrepreneurial journey a lot better than FINRA, where FINRA is more bureaucratic and corporate, if those are good analogies.
I think those are great analogies and just more rigid, right? So it's not necessarily the broker-dealer trying to give you a hard time, but they're just trying to stay compliant from FINRA. And again, that's why the SEC regulations are not looser, but more, in my opinion, reasonable and easier to navigate.
Yeah, I agree. At the end of the day, right, it's all about protecting the consumer
Right.
and making sure that, there are bad actors in every industry and every profession, and making sure that they're given the guardrails that they need to operate in. And, I think that the SEC is just a little bit more forward thinking from that entrepreneurial side than FINRA is. It's not good or bad, it's just the way it is.
Exactly. And, we talk about this a lot, and this is not that I want to come down on broker-dealers. And, last year, InvestmentNews did a 2-page article putting me at public enemy number one for the broker-dealer.
Non grata,
And I told my staff, if we get any packages from Merrill Lynch, just make sure it's not ticking. But it's not like I hate the broker-dealer space. The broker-dealer space is hugely important and will not only survive but thrive at what they do best, which is creating products.
Right.
But my contention is the consumer should not be getting advice on which product to purchase from the entity that's creating the product. So I think broker-dealers are great at creating products and distributing them, but I think advice lives in the fiduciary space, which of course is RIA.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think that the thing that even makes this all more confusing are the fact that some people in the more corporate wirehouse type environment, they're wearing both hats in some instances, right? They're operating under the broker-dealer side, and then they're also operating under the corporate RIA side. And then, if you're somebody in the public, how do you know whether the advisor, when you're on the phone or on the Zoom, are they wearing their broker-dealer hat, or are they wearing their fiduciary, advisory hat? It gets a little muddy, and I think that there have been talks about changing up titling and things like that, and I think that there's so much alphabet soup out there that we need a little bit more clarity so people have an understanding around that. I mean, at the end of the day, there are fiduciaries that don't act as fiduciaries, right?
Absolutely.
And there are doctors that don't follow the do no harm code, and the whole idea is to weed those people out so we elevate the profession to as high a level as we possibly can.
Without question, and that is important, is for consumers to know, right? There's nothing wrong with the broker-dealer methodology, but it's got to be clear, am I dealing with someone representing this product or someone who's giving me unbiased advice?
Right.
Am I talking to the car salesperson or am I reading consumer reports, right? There's a big difference, and I use that analogy all the time, as I know you do too. Okay, so as we're coming up on time here, what's next for the Mitlin machine?
Yeah, so our big thing is, if you're an advisor who is looking to put a more positive tone to their practice and want to understand how leading with joy can be a business generator for yourself and create a better bond with the families you serve, and quite frankly, create a better life for you, we're going to be launching the Joyful Advisor.
Oh, nice.
So that's going to be coming up. That's our big launch coming up later this year. We're going to have a webinar where we're going to share all of our secrets. And advisors, if you're thinking about going independent or even on the broker-dealer side, and this is something you think you can do, if you go to joyfuladvisor.com, just put in your name and email. We can add you to the waiting list, so when that comes out, we'll be happy to include you in those notifications that webinar is released.
All right, well, that sounds perfect and a great place to put a pin in it for today. And Larry, I have to say, I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you. It's always a joy seeing you, Chuck.
Likewise, Larry. Okay, real good. So that's kicking us off for today. Stay tuned. We have another 4 or 5 segments to go here at the Jolt Conference in Music City, Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks for joining us. And Larry, thanks again. That was great.